Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another video. I, of course, am Angie. If you're new to the channel, welcome, welcome. If you're not new to the channel, welcome to you as well. Welcome, everyone. So this week, we are going to be talking about duplicating your wardrobe without needing a pattern. So I have one specific dress that we're going to be working on today, and we are going to talk through it. So without further ado, let's get right into it. And just real quick before I forget, if you do like this video and you would like to see more content just like this, go ahead and hit that like, the thumbs up button below the video, and that will help us get this video out to more who would love to see content just like this as well. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, consider hitting that subscribe button also below the video. And again, that will help us out with getting this video out to as many people who are also interested in the same kind of content you are. Okay, so if you were here for my last video, I kind of talked a little bit about this dress. So this is a dress I bought online. I really, really like it. And I haven't been able to find an exact pattern for it, but I wanted to duplicate it because I really like how it fits. I like how it looks. I like the fabric. I just like everything about it. The only thing I didn't like, and you can probably see, is it had lace sleeves and they were pretty tight. So I did cut the sleeves off. I'll add my own sleeve at some point here. So you can see I just cut the sleeves off. But other than that, I really like how it fits. And so since I wasn't able to find an exact pattern duplicate for it, I decided to create my own. So this is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how you can examine your dresses. You have a favorite dress and you haven't been able to find another one like it, you can duplicate it. If I did it, you can do it too. So we're just going to break it down a little bit, and we are going to see the progression of I've actually tried to duplicate the dress, and I think I've done it 3 different times now. So we're going to go through those progressions and break it down so that you all can duplicate your patterns. It can be top patterns, dress patterns, skirt patterns, whatever it is, so that you can examine, break it down, and duplicate your wardrobe without a pattern. So looking at our inspiration dress here, aside from the top that I said I cut the sleeves off of, it's got some lace at the top. And then as we go down, this is kind of that like slinky sort of fabric, and it's really cool and great for summer. And then it has this belt, and it's only across the front. Like here's the back of the dress. It's not on the back of the dress at all. It's only across the front. So we have this really neat belt feature there, which I really like on the dress because it hides and covers things in the belly area that I want hidden and covered. So I really like that feature. And then it just kind of flares out at the bottom in like an A-line fashion. So we're going to try to duplicate this dress. This is the one I bought online that I haven't been able to find a pattern for. So we are going to duplicate it. So let's do that right now. So I feel like this dress would be pretty easy to duplicate. I'm not going to do the lace yoke at the top. I'm just going to do a standard top and then the A-line skirt. So A-line skirts I feel like are fairly easy, but that's what we're going to do for this dress. And then the top, I'm just going to go with a standard top. So in doing the bodice part of your dress, the easiest thing for me to do was to find a top that I like that fits me really, really well. Fold it in half, lay it on the fold of my fabric, trace it, and cut it. Now, when you're tracing out your shirt, you want to make sure that you're adding an inch all the way around, because remember, you are going to have a seam allowance when you're cutting it out. So the easiest way for you to get your bodice of your dress is, like I said, find a shirt you like, fold it in half very, very carefully, like make sure it's exact. Lay the folded part of your top along the folded edge of your fabric, trace it out, adding an inch all the way around, cut it, and you have the bodice of your dress, which is very, very simple. As far as the skirt, I did the exact same thing. I folded my dress in half. You'll see it later in the video. I folded my dress in half. I laid the fold right along the folded edge of my fabric. I traced around, adding an inch all the way around, and that was how I got my skirt pattern. Voila, done, easy peasy. Again, you'll see that later. So we have the bodice and we have the skirt. But now we need to talk about that belt in the middle. The belt, what is really the selling feature of this dress for me. So let's talk about that for a second. All right, so I'm looking at this belt and in trying to figure out how they attached it, I was trying to figure out what they did here. You can see it's gathered, but it's not just gathered, it's elasticized right here. So it kind of stretches, which is nice. So I did try a few different things with the belt. I tried just normal gathering, which did give it that cinched look, but with normal gathering, it didn't stretch at all. So I decided I wasn't going to do just normal gathering. Then I tried elastic. Elastic was fine, but it just made it a little bit bulky on these seams where I had the elastic there. So it did work. It just made it too bulky and I didn't want bulk in my dress. So I tried those two things and they didn't really work. So what I decided next was to try elastic thread. If you haven't used elastic thread before, the elastic thread, it's actually called elastic thread. You can find it on wawak.com. I'll link it in the description. You can also find it on Amazon. I don't know if they sell the brand names on Amazon, but it may all be the same, but I do buy mine on Wawak. So they usually come in white and black elastic thread. So this is just thread that is elasticized. So it's really nice. It's not bulky like regular elastic, and you only are going to use it in your bobbin thread or in your bobbin. So you're not going to use this on top. On the top of my machine, I just use my standard, whatever color matches the dress that I'm working on, standard thread on the top spool, and then I put the elastic thread in my bobbin. So whenever you're using elastic thread, you never want to wind it on an automatic bobbin winder. You want to hand wind it on your bobbin. So this is because you don't want the thread to stretch as you're winding it. If it stretches as you're winding it, it's not going to give you the same look then on your finished product. So you want to hand wind it so that it's loose around your bobbin. And then you just insert your bobbin into your bobbin holder as normal. And this is going to be your bobbin thread, so the elastic thread. So to start the dress, we just took the inspiration dress that we're using and I folded it in half. I lined up my seams over here to make sure it was folded exactly. This is my folded edge. And this is what I'm going to use. I'm going to lay this right on my fabric and we are going to use this to cut out our skirt portion of the dress. Okay, so the fabric is folded in half. Here's the rest of my fabric. This is the wrong side of my fabric here. So the fold is just right over here. And then this is the inspo dress and I have it folded and laying right along the fold of my fabric. And I'm just going to go ahead and trace this out, but I'm going to give myself an extra inch all the way around for my seam allowance. Okay, so here's my dress that I'm using as the inspo. And then of course you can see the lines that I drew right along. And I just gave myself that extra inch for the seam allowance. And I came right up here to the waistline. Hopefully you can see this is the waistline of my dress. And this is where I'm going to end my tracing. And this is on the fold of my fabric. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. And then I'm going to do one more. And that's going to give me my complete skirt for the dress. This is just going to give me the front skirt portion, and then I'm going to fold the fabric and do the exact same thing again. That'll give me the back portion, and then of course we'll sew those together for the dress. All right, so after measuring the belt on our inspiration dress, I just went ahead and cut out my fabric, the same measurement as the belt on the inspiration dress. So the belt on the inspiration dress is 16 inches all the way across. So I just folded my fabric in half, and I actually cut it to give myself 16 and a half, 17 inches, because you have to remember that you need a seam allowance. So I have some extra at the end. So what I'm doing now is just ironing my belt so that I will have some really nice crease lines in here to use as a guide when I am gathering the belt to make it stretchy. So I'll show you exactly what I'm ironing here. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm just folding it in half. I'm going to iron it here and give me a nice middle crease. And then I'm going to fold it in half again, and I'm going to iron it along the fold, and that will give me some nice quarter creases, and those are the guides that I'm going to use when I am gathering my belt. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see I folded the belt in half and ironed it, and see how it just gives me this nice crease right here in the middle, and I'll be able to use that then as my guide when I'm sewing and to gather my belt. Okay, so after I iron and I have my middle crease, I'm going to go ahead and fold this in half again, so it's kind of quartered, and then I have a folded edge on both sides. I'm going to go ahead and iron both sides of those, and that's going to give me my 2 additional creases that I'm going to use as my guide when I am gathering the belt. Okay, so you should be able to see now I've got the middle crease, and then I folded it in half, and I did a quarter crease here. Then if I flip it, I also have the quarter crease here. All right, so to do the gathering on the belt, I am at a regular sewing machine. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to turn my tension all the way up as high as it will go. And I am using just a normal straight stitch, but we are going to go ahead and increase it as high as it will go, which for mine is 4.8 for the stitch length. And then we are going to go ahead and gather our fabric. All right, so I have the fabric in the sewing machine. I have elastic thread in my bobbin, and then I have navy thread for the top. And hopefully you guys can see I have this crease here. That's because I ironed it. I'm going to use this crease as my guide when I sew so that I have a nice straight stitch. Especially important for this is don't forget to back stitch at the top or at the start and at the end of your stitch. The back stitch will help lock in that gather so that when I attach it to the bodice of my dress, the gathers don't fall out. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start, and we're going to back stitch. All right, and we're going to go all the way down our fabric. Quick back stitch. We're going to pull that right off, and hopefully you'll be able to see that's got a nice little elastic gather right here. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that on the middle where I have my nice middle guide there. And then I'm going to do it where I made the other seam as well. We're going to go ahead and gather all 3 of those spots on our belt. Okay, and hopefully you can see the belt is complete. I have one nice elastic gathered stitch right there. I've got one in the middle, and then I have this lovely one on the other side. So I have all 3 stitches in place. It is gathered, it's elasticized, nice and stretchy, and ready to attach to the front bodice. All right. So we have the belt finished here. Before we sew any of our bodice pieces together, the first thing we need to do is get our belt attached to our front bodice. So I'm going to take my belt and I'm just turning it upside down on the bottom of my front bodice piece. Yes, you're going to slightly stretch the belt to fit as you sew, but we're just going to line these pieces up right along here. You're going to line it up all the way across your raw edges, and we're just going to stitch right along here and get our belt sewn on. And as you stitch, you just want to stretch your belt a tiny little bit as you go so that it fits, because you can see it's a tiny bit shorter, but the fabric is very stretchy. So I'm just going to stretch it as I go. Okay, so we're going to start with our lining fabric. We have our front and back lining pieces. We're going to go ahead and sew right along the shoulder seams, that one and this one, and then we are going to sew right along both side seams. I have them right sides together, which means the right side of the fabric is facing each other. And we're just going to go ahead and sew those up. And then we are going to do the exact same thing with the front and the back bodice of our main fabric. All right, so hopefully you can see here, this is the front bodice piece. I just sewed my belt right along there. And so we have the belt sewn onto the bottom of our front bodice. So now I'm just going to take my front bodice, turn it upside down on my back bodice, and we're going to do the same thing on this that we did on our lining pieces, and we are going to sew both shoulder seams, and then we are going to sew up both of the side seams. All right. Here we go. We have our front and back bodice pieces together. That's our main fabric. And then we did the same on our lining fabric right here, just like that. So now we're going to go ahead and attach the lining with our main fabric. Bodices to be right sides together. So I'm going to go ahead and take my lining fabric. I'm going to turn it right side out. So now all the seams are on the inside of my lining fabric. You can see now it's right side out. The seams are underneath. Here's my seams. So hopefully you can see that. So we're right side out, and I'm going to go ahead and just tuck this right inside my main fabric, and then we're going to stitch it together at the neckline. Let me show you. Okay, so real quick, you can see my lining fabric is tucked inside my main fabric, and we are just going to go ahead and sew these together right around the neck opening right here. And when we are all finished, then we will flip it inside out and see what we have. All right, so this is our bodice and our lining all sewn together at the neckband. So we're gonna go ahead and turn this right side out now. So let's just flip it so that our main fabric is facing out. And then we're just going to tuck that lining right down inside of our main fabric. And we should have our main fabric now on the outside and our lining tucked down on the inside. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this and I'm going to go ahead and cover stitch it and give it a nice top stitch around the neckline, just right along here. And that's going to really help to keep this lining fabric from wanting to pull up, and it's going to keep it kind of tucked down inside. So let's just go ahead and top stitch right along the outside edge here of our fabric, and then we'll be ready to attach the sleeves and attach our skirt. I did go ahead and just throw a cover stitch right here. Hopefully you can see that right there. And that just gives the neckline some finish. I did use a contrasting thread color in my looper just to make it a little bit easier for the video for you to be able to see it on the inside. If you don't have a cover stitch, it's not a problem. Again, you can just use a regular straight stitch right along your neckline, or you can use a zigzag stitch, whatever your personal preference is, but it'll give it just that nice finish, and it'll help keep your lining fabric from rolling to the outside of your garment when you're wearing it. All right, so now that I have that all done, I'm gonna go ahead and give the neckline a nice press, and just it will give it a clean finish, and then we'll be ready to put everything else together. For my sleeves and the hem of my skirt, I do always like to do a cover stitch on the bottom before I go ahead and fold it up to hem it. I feel like it just gives it that nice clean finish that I really like on the inside. Then when I hem it, it'll look really nice. If you don't have a serger, it's not a problem at all. You can use an overcast foot on your regular sewing machine if your sewing machine has the overcast stitch. If it doesn't, you can always finish off the edge of your fabric with a zigzag stitch. And again, it'll just give it a clean finish whenever you fold it up to hem. Of course, personal preference, you definitely don't have to do that. I just like it to look nice on the inside whenever I wear it. So I'm going to do that on both my sleeves. I'm going to finish the edges just like this. And then at the bottom of my skirt, I'm going to go ahead and stitch it as well on the bottom there so that I have that clean finish when I hem the skirt also. And next we're just going to go ahead and sew up our sleeve side seams. You can see I've got my sleeve right here. And I'm just going to go ahead and sew right along the side seam of the sleeve. I'm going to do that with both. Okay, sleeve side seams are finished. And we are ready to go ahead and give these a nice press and a hem, and then we will get them attached to our garment. All right, so the last thing I'm going to do before we construct the dress is, now that I'm done with the bodice, I'm going to go ahead and have my sleeves here. This is the side seam of the sleeves. I'm just going to go ahead and fold my sleeves up 3/4 of an inch, and I'm going to hem those in place. My sleeves will be done. Now for the skirt part of the dress, what I like to do is I actually like to hem it before I sew the side seams together, because it is easier for me to hem along the straight line of a skirt than it is when the skirt's all together and try to hem it like in the rounds. I don't know, for skirts, it just never seems to work out quite right for me if I sew the side seams first and then hem it last. So I'm going to hem it before I sew the side seams. If you don't do it that way and you hem last, that is totally fine. Go ahead and sew the side seams up of your skirt, and then you'll hem your skirt last. That's totally fine. Again, personal preference. But I am going to fold 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to hem all the way across here, but I am going to start my hem about 4 inches in from the side seam, and I'm going to stop it about 4 inches over on this side. I'm going to stop it about 4 inches from the side seam. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other skirt piece, okay? And then I'm going to sew the side seams. So most of my skirt's going to be hemmed, but then after I sew the side seams, then I'll just hem that little part that's left over. For me, it's easier to do it that way. It just is easier for me to hem it when it's straight. If you don't hem that way and that is confusing to you, you do what works for you. But this is what works best for me. And if you do struggle to get a nice even hem when you have a round garment like a skirt or a dress, then maybe this way will help you out as well. Okay, sleeves are nice and hemmed. And as always, guys, whenever you finish a hem, you want to go ahead and just give it a really good press. And here's our skirt hem. I went ahead and hemmed both skirt pieces, and as you can see, I stopped about 4 inches from the side of my skirt. I did this on both skirt pieces, both sides. So now what I can do, now that my skirt is mostly hemmed, aside from this little bit at the edge, I can go ahead and put my skirt pieces together and sew the side seams, and then just come back and hem this tiny little spot. For me, okay, side seams of our skirt pieces are all sewn up right there, right there. So now we're just going to go ahead back to my cover stitch machine, and I'm going to finish hemming this skirt. So the remaining 4 inches I had there, I'm just gonna fold up the side seam where I just sewed it and go ahead and finish that hem right there, and also on this side right here. And then our skirt pieces are finished and we're ready to put it all together. All right, it is time to attach our sleeves. So this is my bodice. I'm gonna go ahead and take my bodice, just turn that right inside out here. So there we go. Bodice is inside out, so you can see now my lining is kind of on the outside. We're going to take one of our sleeves, and the sleeve, you want the right side of your fabric facing out. So I have the right side of my fabric facing out, and I'm just going to tuck this sleeve right inside the sleeve hole of my bodice, right here, the arm side. Okay, we're just going to stick our sleeve right in there. My sleeve is notched. I'm gonna line that notch up with the shoulder seams that I have there. And I'm going to line up this sleeve seam with the side seam of my bodice. And you can see the sleeve is just eased right in the sleeve hole there. And then we're just going to go ahead and, I'm having trouble holding this. There we go. We're going to go ahead and we are just going to sew this all together all the way around the armhole, and then we're going to do the exact same thing with the other sleeve. All right. Hopefully you guys can see. Sleeves are attached right here. It's our sleeve. So now we're going to go ahead and attach the bodice to our skirt, and then we will be finished. All right, so we have our bodice right here. We have our sleeves on. Last thing is to attach our skirt. So we're going to take our skirt piece right here. This is the waistline in my hands. This is the hem at the bottom. We're going to go ahead and take this and we're just going to slip it right over top of our bodice. So that now the bottom part of our bodice and the waist part of our skirt line up, and then we're just going to go ahead and line that. Make sure your seams match up on the sides, and we're just going to go ahead and sew that all the way around. Here it is. This is the finished dress. Isn't it a beauty? And that'll wrap up this week's video. I hope that something we went through here was helpful for you, and I hope that you were able to find a little bit more confidence maybe in your sewing to duplicate your wardrobe without a pattern if you can't find one that meets exactly what you're looking for. And don't forget, guys, do me a huge favor. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and consider hitting subscribe. And until next week, everyone, have a happy week sewing.